You don't become successful and then act like it. You act like it and then you become successful. Think about that for a moment. Success begins long before the spotlight. It begins in the quiet moments, in the way you carry yourself when no one is watching, in the way you speak, walk, and think before the results ever show. Success is not something you stumble upon by accident. It is not a lottery ticket, a lucky break, or a handout from the universe. Success is earned, yes, but before it's ever earned, it's imagined. It's formed in the mind of the person who believes before any visible progress is ever seen. And that right there is where the journey starts. Not in your job title, not in your bank account, not even in your skill set, but in your mindset. Because long before you become something on the outside, you must become it on the inside. The truth is, your mind is the soil and your beliefs are the seeds. What you plant there and how you nurture it determines everything that will grow in your life. And what most people don't realize is this: if your mind isn't trained for success, if it isn't disciplined to think like someone who's already arrived, then no amount of effort will carry you far enough. You can work harder, stay up later, read more books, or shake more hands, but if you still carry the mindset of someone who's not ready, you'll always find a way to sabotage your progress. You see, the world reflects back to us who we believe we are. Not who we hope to be, not who we pretend to be, who we truly believe ourselves to be on the deepest level. That belief guides every decision we make, every step we take, and every opportunity we either pursue or avoid. If you believe you're not worthy of success, you'll quietly reject every chance to move forward. You'll find excuses, you'll shrink back, you'll talk yourself out of your own potential, and the world won't stop you because it assumes you know your limits. That's why success must begin in the mind, not just in theory, not just in the abstract. I'm talking about a real, deliberate, daily practice of seeing yourself where you want to be, speaking to yourself like the person you aim to become, and acting as though you already belong in the room you used to feel unqualified to enter. This isn't delusion, it's preparation. Because the people who win in life aren't always the most talented, they're not always the most connected, but they're always the most mentally ready. They made the decision long before the world agreed with them. So how do you build that kind of mindset? It starts with awareness. What story are you telling yourself every day? Are you telling yourself you're too old, too young, too late, too early, too broken, too inexperienced, or too behind? If so, understand that your life is always moving in the direction of your most dominant thoughts. If those thoughts are grounded in doubt, fear, and limitation, your life will mirror that. But if your thoughts are grounded in vision, discipline, and belief, your life will rise to meet that standard. And this isn't about ignoring reality. It's about choosing to create a new one. Everyone has setbacks, everyone has limitations. But the most powerful people in the world are those who refuse to be defined by them. They've trained their minds to see possibilities where others see problems. They've learned to reframe failure as feedback, not as proof of inadequacy. They understand that everything great begins as an idea, and if they can hold the image of success long enough in their mind, the world will eventually give them the opportunity to live it. Let me ask you this. If I followed you around for a day, not judging your results, not measuring your income, not tracking your achievements, but just observing the way you think about yourself, the way you approach your goals, the way you speak to your future, would I be able to tell that you believe success is inevitable for you? Would your thoughts prove that you've already decided who you're becoming? Or would I find a person waiting for something external to change before they allow themselves to believe? Because that's the trap so many fall into. I'll believe it when I see it, they say. But here's the truth. You'll see it when you believe it. That belief becomes your compass. That mindset becomes your fuel. The inner world you build becomes the foundation for every achievement you will ever claim. And until you create that internal world of clarity, confidence, and conviction, the external world will remain out of reach. The people who make it, the ones who rise from nothing, who beat the odds, who redefine what's possible, they don't wait for permission to believe in themselves. They give themselves that permission. They visualize the success. They walk with the posture of someone who's already paid the price. They speak with the tone of someone who knows the destination is certain. And by doing so, they not only convince others, they convince life itself. Confidence is one of the most misunderstood forces in the world. People often believe it's something you're either born with or lucky to have. But that belief is the reason so many go through life quietly doubting themselves, assuming confidence is a gift for others, not a muscle they can develop. Let me tell you something important. Confidence isn't something you find. It's something you build. Brick by brick, day by day. And it starts the moment you decide to stop borrowing it from the outside world and start earning it from within. Think about it. We're taught to wait for validation before we feel worthy, to wait until someone hires us, promotes us, praises us, applauds us, or even accepts us before we give ourselves permission to feel confident. But if your confidence depends on someone else's approval, then it's not really yours, it belongs to them. And at any moment, they can take it back. That's not confidence, that's dependency. Real confidence, unshakable confidence, is born in adversity. It's not built in comfort or applause. It's built in those quiet moments when you keep your word to yourself. When you show up for your goals even when no one is watching. When you push through the discomfort, the fear, the hesitation, and you do the work anyway. That's when you earn self-respect, and self-respect is the foundation of all lasting confidence. The most confident people you see walking into rooms like they own them, speaking like they have something important to say, standing tall even when others try to tear them down. Those people didn't just wake up like that. They weren't handed that mindset. They crafted it, one decision at a time. They failed, they doubted, they hesitated, but they showed up again anyway. And that is how confidence is built. By doing the hard things before you feel ready and proving to yourself that you can. It's not about faking it, it's about facing it. Facing the fear, the uncertainty, and the voice in your head that says you're not good enough. Every time you silence that voice by taking action, you chip away at insecurity and reinforce self-belief. And here's what's powerful about that. When confidence is built from within, it doesn't crack under pressure. It doesn't crumble when criticized. Because you know where it came from. You earned it. The truth is, how you carry yourself teaches the world how to treat you. If you walk with your head down, if you hesitate to speak, if you second-guess your every move, people will follow your lead and treat you as unsure, unprepared, and unworthy. But if you stand like you mean it, if you speak with certainty, if you look others in the eye and believe your voice matters, then something magical happens. The world begins to respond differently, not because you've changed your results, but because you've changed your presence. And that's the key. Confidence is not about being better than others. It's about being certain of who you are and committed to who you're becoming. It's about being rooted enough in your own values that you're not easily shaken by rejection, delay, or criticism. When you know who you are and you're proud of what you're building, then you don't need to prove anything to anyone. You're not performing. You're showing up as your real self with power, grace, and purpose. But none of that happens by chance. You must earn your own respect. You must show up for yourself every single day. Do what you said you would. Hold yourself to a higher standard. Speak the truth even when your voice shakes. And most of all, refuse to wait for someone else to tell you that you're good enough. Be your own permission slip. Because at the end of the day, confidence is not something you wear on the outside, it's something you live on the inside. In life, it's not always your talent, your education, or even your experience that opens the door. Sometimes it's your energy. The way you enter a room, the way you speak about your vision, the conviction in your voice when you talk about your future. That's what people feel even before they hear your story. And if your energy doesn't believe in you, why should anyone else? The truth is, energy is contagious. People may not remember what you said, but they'll remember how you made them feel. And what's powerful is that you get to control that. You can choose the energy you show up with. You can decide to radiate belief, hunger, purpose, and presence. Even when you're still in the process of building your dream, You don't need to wait until you've made it to show up like you belong. You show up like you belong first, and that energy begins to draw things toward you. So let's be honest, the world is full of people who are tired, distracted, and defeated. They walk through life slouched, soft-spoken, doubtful, carrying years of disappointment on their backs. They're alive, but they're not lit up. And then, once in a while, someone walks into the room with a different kind of energy. They're not louder, they're not more important, but you feel them. You sense their clarity. You notice their spark. That's the person who gets the call back, gets the deal, gets the chance. Because people are drawn to life, to passion, to belief. And here's the key, that energy doesn't come from pretending, it comes from alignment. When your actions match your values, when your goals match your identity, when your mindset matches your vision, you walk differently. You talk differently. You carry a quiet strength that doesn't need to scream to be heard. And that strength becomes magnetic. People want to be around those who are going somewhere, those who speak about tomorrow with excitement, not fear, those who take responsibility instead of making excuses, those who believe not just in success, but in the possibility of something greater. That belief shows up in your tone, in your pace, in your decisions, and it draws the right people toward you. If you constantly carry the energy of frustration, resentment, or fear, you'll notice that life seems heavy. Opportunities feel far away. Conversations become draining. But when you decide to shift your energy to choose optimism over bitterness, faith over fear, progress over perfection, you'll start noticing a shift in what comes into your life. That's not magic. That's alignment. So think about the last time you met someone who inspired you. It probably wasn't because of their resume. It was their fire, their passion, their clarity. That's energy, and you have access to that too. Not when everything is perfect, but now, today, you can choose to carry yourself like someone who matters, someone who believes their time is valuable, someone who walks into a situation not asking, what if it goes wrong, but instead, what if this is the moment everything began? You don't have to fake confidence. You have to embody belief. The energy of someone who's decided they're no longer waiting for the world to notice them. They're creating value, showing up with intention, and speaking their vision into existence. That kind of energy creates momentum, and momentum attracts everything you once thought was out of reach. Opportunities are looking for people who are ready. Not people who are perfect, but people who are present, alert, energized, focused. The moment you begin to show up like the future is already unfolding, the future starts showing up for you. Because energy doesn't lie. It's either pulling things closer or pushing them away. If you really want to know what your future looks like, you don't need a crystal ball. You don't need to read the stars or wait for a breakthrough moment. All you need to do is look at your habits, because your daily habits are the clearest, most honest preview of where your life is heading. Not your dreams, not your intentions, not your wishes, your habits. What you do consistently is far more powerful than what you do occasionally. Here's what most people don't realize. Your life doesn't rise to the level of your goals. It falls to the level of your systems. You can say you want to be wealthy, but if your habits are built on procrastination, distraction, and emotional spending, then the future you imagine will always stay out of reach. You can say you want to be in great shape, but if your habits are based on excuses and inconsistency, your body won't reflect your desire. And this truth can be painful, but it's also empowering. Because if habits can build the life you don't want, they can just as easily build the life you do. Your habits are not just actions, they're votes for the kind of person you are becoming. Every time you keep your word to yourself, every time you choose discipline over comfort, every time you prioritize growth over ease, you are casting a vote for your future self. And those votes add up, not all at once, but slowly, steadily, and without fail. The life you're living today is the result of habits you built or neglected yesterday. We all want change, but the question is, are we willing to change what we do daily because that's the difference between those who achieve and those who only dream. The achievers didn't just want it more, they trained more, they read more, they executed more. They didn't have better luck, they had better rituals, and those rituals became the invisible engine behind everything they built. And let's be honest, habits aren't always about motivation. Motivation fades, inspiration disappears. You don't need a surge of energy every day. What you need is structure. What you need is to automate the actions that align with your goals so that even when life gets messy or your emotions dip, your habits still carry you forward. That's the power of discipline. It doesn't ask how you feel, it asks what you committed to. But too many people are waiting to feel ready. They're waiting for the perfect time, the perfect plan, the perfect version of themselves to show up before they begin. That day never comes. You build confidence by doing. You gain clarity by starting. And every habit you form becomes a brick in the foundation of your future. Ask yourself, what are the habits that run your life? Not the ones you wish you had. The ones you actually practice. Are they moving you forward or holding you back? Are they built on intention or reaction? Because the truth is, if you're not designing your habits, your environment is designing them for you. And most of the time, that default setting is designed for comfort, not greatness. The person you want to become isn't built in one giant leap. They're built in the quiet, consistent choices you make each day. Waking up early when it would be easier to sleep in, saying no to distractions when it would be easier to give in, showing up for yourself even when nobody else is watching. These are the decisions that shape your character. These are the habits that shape your destiny. You don't need to change everything overnight, you just need to start. One habit, one decision, one system that pulls you closer to your vision. Because your future isn't found in some distant, far-off event. It's hidden in the rhythm of your daily life, and you have the power to rewrite that rhythm starting today. You may have the heart, the vision, the drive, but if you plant a strong seed in poisoned soil, it will struggle to grow. And this is exactly what happens when a powerful mind is placed in a toxic environment. Your environment is not neutral, it's not passive. It is constantly shaping your identity, your mindset, and ultimately your outcomes, whether you notice it or not. We often think we are purely products of our willpower. We believe that strength alone can overcome anything. But that's not always how it works, because no matter how determined you are, if you are constantly surrounded by people who doubt you, drain you, or distract you, your progress will slow. Your confidence will erode. And you will start adapting to the energy around you instead of rising to the energy within you. Take a moment to reflect. Who are you spending the most time around? What kind of conversations dominate your day? What kind of energy lives in the rooms you enter? Is it uplifting, focused, and purposeful? Or is it cynical, scattered, and stuck in the past? Because what surrounds you will eventually seep into you. That's not weakness, that's biology. The human mind absorbs its atmosphere. You become like the people you are around. You begin to mirror their mindset, their expectations, their beliefs. And if they've already given up on themselves, you'll start to question whether it's worth fighting for your dream. But the good news, you have a choice. You don't have to accept the environment you inherited. You can build one that nurtures your growth. You can be intentional about what you let into your world. You can surround yourself with voices that challenge you to rise higher. People who expect greatness from you, not because they need something from you, but because they see something in you. When you place yourself in the right environment, something inside of you begins to bloom. You start thinking bigger. You begin to believe that maybe your vision isn't crazy after all. You take your goals seriously because you're finally around others who take themselves seriously. And in that kind of space, motivation stops being a struggle. Discipline becomes easier. Belief becomes natural. Because now, you're not trying to swim against the current. You've changed the current itself. It's not just about people. Your environment includes your digital space, your daily surroundings, your routines, what you watch, what you listen to, what you read. All of it adds up. Every piece of input is a seed, and your mind is the soil. If all you feed yourself is noise, negativity, or comparison, don't be surprised when you feel stuck or inadequate. But if you fill your space with wisdom, clarity, and focus, then over time your identity starts to match that input. Identity is not fixed. You weren't born with a personality etched in stone. You build who you are by what you tolerate, what you surround yourself with, and what you allow into your world. That's why sometimes the greatest act of self-respect is to walk away from anything that insults your ambition, even if that means being temporarily alone while you rebuild. Growth often starts in solitude and flourishes in the presence of the right tribe. Protecting your environment is not selfish, it's strategic. You're not just preserving your peace, you're protecting your potential. You can't afford to treat your surroundings casually when your future is on the line. Whether it's the desk you work at, the feeds you scroll, or the friends you lean on, it all matters. And when you begin to clean up your environment, your identity starts to rise. You begin to show up differently, not because you've changed who you are, but because you've finally created a space where your true self can thrive. One of the most powerful shifts you will ever make in your life is learning how to speak from your future instead of repeating your past. Most people live trapped in the vocabulary of their history. They talk about what didn't work, who hurt them, how they failed, what they lacked, and why things haven't changed. They speak in the language of limitations. And without realizing it, they rehearse their pain so often, it becomes part of their identity. But the people who truly elevate, who rise beyond circumstances and reinvent their lives, do something different. They speak from where they're going. They talk with the voice of someone already walking in their destiny. Their words carry vision, not victimhood. They describe what's coming, not just what's happened. They're not ignoring the past. They're simply not dragging it into the future. They're creating, because here's the truth. Your words are instructions to your mind. Every time you speak, you're sending a signal to your subconscious, either reinforcing where you've been or programming where you're headed. If you keep saying, I've always struggled with this, or I'm just not that kind of person, or that's just how life's been for me, you're giving your brain a blueprint to stay stuck. But when you begin to say, I'm learning to master this, or I'm becoming the kind of person who handles this with grace, or I'm building a new story for my life, your words start to lay tracks for your future to follow. You don't need evidence to start speaking in alignment with your vision. That's what makes it powerful. You don't need the bank account, the body, the brand, or the applause. You need belief. You need courage to speak from the place you're growing into. Because the world won't believe in you until you believe in you. And that belief starts in your language. Speak with clarity. Speak with confidence. Speak with expectancy. Instead of saying, if I ever make it, say, when I do. Instead of saying, I hope something changes, say, I'm becoming the person who makes change happen. The difference is subtle, but it's everything, because your words aren't just describing your life, they're directing it. You might have grown up hearing voices that told you to be realistic, to play small, to be quiet, to wait your turn, and over time you may have adopted those voices as your own. But it's time to challenge those internal echoes. It's time to give your future a voice louder than your past. When you speak from vision, your brain starts working with you instead of against you. It looks for possibilities, it builds new patterns, it starts collecting evidence for the future you've chosen to believe in. This is not about pretending, it's about becoming. And becoming begins with speaking, even if it feels uncomfortable at first, even if your current reality doesn't yet match your words. Speak anyway. Speak until it sounds normal. Speak until it feels natural. Speak until your environment has no choice but to rise to meet your declaration. Because what you speak repeatedly becomes what you believe. And what you believe becomes how you behave. And how you behave becomes the life you live. So if you want to live differently, you have to talk differently. Don't just repeat what's been, declare what will be. Don't just echo your past, broadcast your potential. Train yourself to speak like someone who's already overcome, who's already transformed, who's already tapped into their purpose. Talk like you're building something real, because you are. And the more your words align with the life you want, the faster you'll walk into that life. There is a voice inside you that no one else hears, a constant whisper that shapes your confidence, your behavior, your decisions, and your direction. That voice is your inner narrative, the private story you tell yourself about who you are, what you're capable of, and what kind of life you deserve. And until you take control of that story, you will always live beneath your potential, even if the world sees something greater in you. The inner narrative is not something you're born with. It's built. Layer by layer, word by word, moment by moment, through your experiences, your failures, your triumphs, and most dangerously, the opinions of others. Maybe someone once told you that you weren't smart enough, and now you hear that voice every time you try to grow. Maybe you failed once, and now your inner dialogue is filled with warnings, self-doubt, and hesitation. It's not the outside world that stops most people. It's the quiet war happening inside their own minds. But here's the truth. Your inner narrative is not fixed. It's not your fate. It's a script. And scripts can be rewritten. If the voice in your head has been playing the role of the critic, the doubter, the pessimist, it's time to fire that voice and hire a new one that speaks like a coach, not a judge, one that lifts you, reminds you, and fuels you with clarity and conviction. Because your brain is always listening to the words you use. Every time you say, I'm not good at this, I always mess this up, or this is just who I am, you reinforce a version of yourself that you're trying to grow beyond. Your inner voice becomes your autopilot. And if that voice is rooted in fear, then even your most powerful dreams will crash under its influence. You have to start telling yourself a better story. You have to remind yourself not just of where you've been, but where you're going, not just what you lack, but what you carry. You have strength, you have wisdom, you have survived moments that once felt impossible. And yet, if you're not careful, that inner voice will still make you feel like you're not enough. So how do you master it? You start by noticing it. Tune in to what you say to yourself in quiet moments, when you fail, when you're tired, when you're afraid. Are you encouraging or discouraging? Are you speaking to yourself like someone you love or someone you've already given up on? Because how you talk to yourself determines how you treat yourself, and how you treat yourself teaches others how to treat you too. You must become the guardian of your internal world. When negative self-talk shows up, don't entertain it like a guest. Challenge it. Replace it. Don't let a bad day convince you that you have a bad life. Don't let one setback define your story. Your inner narrative should be rooted in truth, not fear, not doubt, and definitely not shame. Truth is, you are becoming. You are building. You are in process. And progress is messy, but it's still progress. Mastering your inner narrative doesn't mean you never feel insecure. It means you know what to say to yourself when insecurity shows up. It means that when life shakes you, your inner voice becomes your anchor, not your enemy. It means that your story becomes your strategy, not your excuse. Every day, you're writing your identity in your own mind. So write it with intention, rewrite what no longer serves you, narrate your life like someone who is building something beautiful, not just surviving but thriving. Because long before the world believes in you, long before results show up, long before you're celebrated publicly, you have to believe your own story. And that begins by mastering the voice that no one hears but you. When you begin to act like you've already made it, you stop negotiating with your limitations and start aligning with your potential. You stop waiting for permission, for approval, for the perfect moment, and instead you start becoming the person who's already living the life you desire. This isn't about arrogance. It's not about pretending. It's about stepping boldly into the identity that your future demands of you. Success does not begin on the outside. It starts in your decisions, your standards, your habits, and most of all, in your mindset. It starts when you dress like it, speak like it, walk like it, and think like it. It starts when you take control of your environment, when you talk about where you're going more than where you've been, when you master the inner voice that no one hears but you, because that voice is shaping everything. Every person who made it once stood where you are, full of vision but surrounded by doubt, full of hope but carrying fear. The difference? They made a choice. They chose to behave like the person they were becoming, not the person they used to be. They understood something simple but life-changing. If you keep showing up as the old version of yourself, you'll keep getting the same old results. But if you start showing up as the future version, the focused, confident, disciplined, courageous version, then everything around you begins to shift. People treat you differently. Opportunities find you. Doors open. Not because the world changed, but because you don't rise to your goals, you fall to your standards. So raise them. Live from the future, not the past. Let your vision guide your voice, your values, and your actions. Every day, show up like you're already becoming who you were created to be. Because the greatest power you have isn't in what you do, it's in how you see yourself. And when you begin to act like you've already made it, that's when the world starts to believe it too.